Welcome back YouTube, and in today's educational series we're going to be talking about what to do when motivation drops but you still want to get after your results. And I think this is a very common topic that comes up with a lot of my guys in their check-ins, and I think it's very common across every realm in the world, not just the fitness industry or working towards a physique or fitness goal. But I think a huge expectation nowadays and a huge kind of misconception is you should always feel motivated, you should always feel fired up to achieve your goals. And I'm telling you firsthand, even after the bodybuilding season that I had, there were days that I didn't want to do cardio, there were days that I didn't want to eat food on plan. And this is perfectly normal, and we're going to go through this video how we're going to kind of firstly accept that this is very normal, but second of all try and get some actionable tips across for you to implement so that you don't feel like you're falling behind or you should feel motivated all the time. So I think the number one rule is to accept that motivation is going to come and go. Some days, some weeks, you're going to feel super fired up, like, come on, this is my week, I'm going to smash PBs in the gym, I'm going to lose loads of weight or gain loads of tissue. And the reality of it is this is simply not the case, okay? There's going to be spikes of motivation and there's going to be dips in motivation. But one thing that should stay consistent is your discipline and not to act on emotion. If we were to act on just when we felt motivated, probably wouldn't get very far in life in any realm, not just fitness or physique. And I think it's very important to remember that no one feels fired up 24/7. And I think with obviously modern day technology, social media, this might be a separate video again, that's my favourite saying within these videos. Obviously we've got a lot of videos to talk about, a lot of subjects to talk about I should say. But with social media you're seeing everyone's best version of themselves. No one's going to post themselves when they feel low. Some people might nowadays. The good thing about Instagram is slowly moving towards more kind of raw content, more honest content. And this is what I'm trying to keep these videos as honest and raw as possible. Hence why I kind of tell you about things that you can relate to that I'm going through as well. But when you see Instagram first thing Monday morning, and I do it myself, I'm up early, I've gone for my walk, listened to my podcast, done 3,000 steps, I'm at my office. Like that for a lot of people looks like super motivated. That's not motivation, that's discipline, and that takes time. That takes a lot of practice and effort and years of practice to create that. That is just normal. I don't feel motivated every moment I wake out of bed. In fact, most mornings I'm like, oh, tired today, or oh, you know what, I can't really be asked with the walk this morning. I might just go straight, into check-ins and do my work. But on Instagram, you're seeing everyone's best version of themselves. So never compare to Instagram, okay? It's going to be very rare that people post, can't be asked today, or I missed this cardio session because of X, or I didn't eat my food on plan today because of Y. You're seeing the best version of everyone else. And instinctively, you're always going to compare to other people. You're like, oh, he smashed his week. Why aren't I smashing my week? He must be really motivated. They're probably not motivated. They're probably just disciplined and they have a big enough goal and reason to actually just get the shit done, even when motivation's low, okay? The people that look the most motivated are the ones that are just the most consistent, okay? So again, Instagram's a probably bad thing to compare to because a lot of people that are on Instagram are obviously going to post their good side, but a lot of the people, including myself, are just posting what their normal habits are, okay? Regardless of whether they feel tired or motivated or not. So I think it's very important to stop relying on this kind of spike of motivation to kind of come. Whenever you kind of click your fingers, you can't just expect it to come. It will come, don't get me wrong. But one thing that I always say to my clients and even new people coming on board is a lot of people, majority of people, in fact, will wait for motivation to start something, whether it be fat loss or muscle building or doing cardio. They'll be like, oh, you know what, I'll start after Christmas. I'll start in January because motivation is going to be higher then. And the reality of it is a lot of people think it goes motivation, action, results, whereas the real kind of timeline is action, then you get the results, and then your own results create the motivation to continue to move forwards. So I think that's always important. Don't wait for motivation, act first, and then the results will come, and then you'll kind of create your own motivation and momentum as time goes by. Number 2 is stick to the routine, even when you're not feeling like it, okay? So your plan shouldn't change just because your mood does, okay? There was not one day during this bodybuilding prep that I've just done where if I didn't feel like doing cardio or if I didn't feel like going back out in the afternoon to do more steps, just because I didn't feel like it. There was never a moment where I didn't do it because of how I felt. I did it anyway, and I can tell you now that the reward and feeling that you get from doing something after you didn't initially want to do it is super, super high. Okay, you feel on top of the world because it's like, oh my God, I didn't want to do that and I've just done it anyway. So it's always important to remember that don't let your emotions and instinct determine what you do from day to day. Okay, you're not going to feel fired up every single second of the the 7-day week, and that's just normal. I don't feel. It's probably like two or three times per week where I feel motivated, where I get like an instant spell to suddenly do loads more work, or I'll be really fired up to go to the gym. And I might have spoken about this before, but when it comes to the gym itself, and I say this to a lot of my clients, that 50% of the sessions that you do will be okay. 25% of them will be pretty shit, and you probably could have done better. And 25% of them would have been, fantastic, top-notch sessions. But again, everyone expects every session to be 100%. Like, you want to be amazing in every single session. And obviously that would be fantastic in an ideal world, but the reality of it is it's just not true. So if you're feeling tired, still get it done, but just get what you can done. Like, for example, if you're feeling a bit tired, okay, here's a good example. And, you've got food prep to do for tomorrow. Just maybe prep things that are required to be prepped for tomorrow. Like the protein sources will always take longer to prep. So just do that. You can leave the carb sources and maybe the fats for the next day. Worst case scenario. But again, most of the time, just get shit done. Your future self, and I always refer to this, your future self will always thank you. And I've spoken about this before. Like, the reason why I jump out of bed in the morning and find it relatively easy to get going, and not from like a mindset perspective, I'm still pretty sluggish in the morning, but how I make that easier for myself is the day before, I will leave my clothes out in the spare room, my headphones out in the spare room, and when I wake up, I go to the toilet, I weigh myself, and then there's no like, oh, I need to get my clothes out the wardrobe, I need to tiptoe around the house so I don't wake Hannah up. It's there, it's ready. And that was me, previous me, preparing for future me. And that's one of the biggest things that I can always tell you and give you advice is always think about your future self. And this can work with like off-plan food. If there's temptation to maybe eat something off-plan, try and think about how you would feel after that meal. And I can promise you, probably 9 times out of 10, you would feel pretty shit if you've got a goal to work towards anyway. So yeah, always think about your future self, whether that's food prep, whether that's, thinking about how you would feel after a certain off-plan meal, for example, or how you would feel after you've done cardio when you didn't want to do cardio. Always try and think about your future self. And that has really, really helped me over the years in terms of getting shit done. And obviously make your routine automatic. Like I say, brushing your teeth, you'd pretty much, most people hopefully, do that twice a day. That's something because it's been instilled and drilled into us from a very young age. And although it is but it is much harder to build habits as you get older because your brain develops. In your early years, your brain is obviously still developing, so it is easy to pick up habits. And this is, again, another video for another time, but this is where a lot of kind of, childhood trauma and things can stick with you for the rest of your life because your brain isn't fully developed, so it just kind of picks onto these things. So when you are trying to create a new routine, just make sure it's, automated, but give it time. Like, you need to give it like at least, 3-4 weeks before things set into place, because essentially a habit will stick with you. And once you do things over and over again, it will be kind of wired into your brain, and it will get you into a position where it's just the norm. Like, getting up at a certain time for me every day is the norm. Going to bed at a certain time every day for me is the norm, because that's how my kind of brain is wired now. And this helps from like a hormonal standpoint and everything. And this is why early on in your life, your brain isn't fully developed. This is what is called neuroplasticity. So this is essentially your brain rewiring itself to build new habits over time. And this is something that can be done, although it is a little bit harder when you do get older because your brain is developed. So it's a case of just kind of rewiring that brain and focusing on neuroplasticity, which seems a bit complex, but it's not. Number 3, have a minimum standard rule. So like non-negotiables is what I set for clients. Make sure you've hit X amount of water per day, make sure you've hit X amount of steps per day, make sure you hit your protein. And if you are super rushed for time, some form of workout is better than nothing. So something is always better than nothing at all, okay? Always, in every aspect of life, whether it be, you physically cannot leave your desk because you're back to back on calls all day, but you've got an hour free in the evening. Yes, you've had a busy day with work, so you should probably just sit down and chill out, but get 60 minutes worth of steps in. That is better than not doing anything at all. That's a very easy and simple one to take away. Number 4, which I think is a very big one, is reconnect with your why and why you started. Okay, so a lot of people, when they're going through like any form of phase, when they get maybe to a hard point or a kind of a moment of friction, it can be sometimes easy for the brain, and this again is another defense mechanism of your body, your autonomic nervous system and your brain, to kind of tell you to stop when things get tough because it's trying to protect itself. Your brain will always try and choose the easy option in life. Always remember that. And as you get into the back end of a diet, for example, and you're like, oh, you know what, what's the point anymore? Like you get all these kind of self-doubt kind of talks in your head and your brain's just trying to tell you to stop and you don't need to do this anymore. You've pushed yourself too much. Stop and reflect. Remind yourself why you started. Look back and see how far you've come. And, if you want to feel, confident with your top off at the beach, for example, if you want to prove something to yourself, because for me, I was sick of always being like 80-90% at everything that I did in life, like exams in school, revision, uni, like I'd always give it a good amount of effort but never like a full amount of effort. And one thing I realized over the years is that the gym was something that I would always give pretty much 99%, but this year I wanted to give it 100%, because again it was just like, oh, why can't you just give it that 1%? So this year, past year, I committed 100% to something. So for me, that is me wanting to prove that I can commit absolutely everything for a full period of time. So I think this will be a big one for a lot of people. Like people get so far with a diet or so far with a bulk or whatever it might be, and they'll be like, stop, you've done enough now, but just push your limits and remind yourself of why you started and prove, for a lot of people it might be to prove something to yourself. And again, this just kind of limits the stop start every 3 or 4 months. A lot of people will come on board with myself as a client. They'll do 12 weeks and then they'll go back to old habits because it gets a bit tough, or they're bored of the lifestyle that is essentially making them feel better and you want to go back to their normal habits. So again, this is where people just go around in a very vicious cycle and they never really get anywhere in terms of their physique development nor general progression within life. And I know it sounds a bit brutal, but it is very true. Like if you are very locked into your routine from gym, from nutrition, I can guarantee you a lot of the other things in your life will go well as well. Okay, and don't get me wrong, we can always have that flexibility and balance in different phases within your kind of journeys, but a lot of the time you do need to just lock yourself in for a few months and just stop starting. And number 5, the final one, don't chase motivation. I think if you're looking for motivation, or when am I going to feel fired up, like you're never going to feel fired up if you're chasing it. Chase momentum, okay? So have a good day. Another, one good day will lead to another good day. Win, and this is something, again, I say to all of my clients, don't focus on the future. Don't focus on, a sudden spike of motivation. All you can physically do in the present is focus on winning today. You can't control what's tomorrow. You can't control what's next week, but you can win today, okay? And that means taking everything off with a very high standard as well. Everyone's standards are different. Some people have really high standards, which is fantastic. These people probably do very well in life. Some people's standards aren't that high, which is, a big tick in the box for them would just be to get into the gym, disregarding all the food and the steps and everything else and good sleep. Some people might go to the gym, but then they'll stay up till 3 a.m. playing Xbox or PlayStation. So again, just win each day to the best of your ability. And if you feel like you could give more or you could push more, this is where you just need to raise your standards. And this is something I will continue to do each year. I will continue to raise my standards, whether it be business, physique, fitness, relationships, everything. I always want to try and do better. And this is not a bad mindset to have. This is just, a pursuit of wanting to be better. And it is, chasing momentum, which is essentially what this last slide is. Motivation will come back once you're already in motion. Motivation will not come if you're starting from nothing. Okay, so what I mean by that is if you're having consistent shit days, don't expect this kind of sudden magical wand to be waved over your head and all of a sudden you're motivated. It will start with action, and it will start with just getting the basic shit done. And then that is what will create that momentum, that snowball effect, which will compound over time. And all of a sudden, you've got the result that you wanted. So just a final reminder to summarize this video. Motivation is great for short term, but it will run out. There were spikes throughout my prep where I was really motivated, like super motivated. If I just, had a really good workout, took my top off and I was pumped, I looked jacked. But after like two rest days back to back, for example, and low foods, I felt flat. I felt shit. I was like, oh my God, I don't even look good. And that is your mind playing tricks on you again. And, in reality, I should have just checked with myself and said, mate, well, I did in the end eventually. Hannah might have helped a little bit. You've had 2 days of not training, your foods are a little bit lower, of course you're going to feel flat. You're at the back end of a diet. So again, you can be motivated for a very short period of time and it feels great, dopamine's really high, but it can come back down. And once you're a lot more kind of self-aware of your own emotions, and I think this is a big part of any process that anyone's going through, fat loss or muscle building or general life, is you need to understand yourself and your psychology. Psychology is such a big part of training and nutrition and chasing a certain physique. And I think if and when I will do a lot more videos on psychology, because essentially, and I'm well, I've got to stop saying this. This is an Instagram post that is coming this week, so it's a video for again. But when people ask me what was the hardest part of prep, and I really think, and when I kind of like dumb it down, what I actually did, like the physical demands that I did, which was stick to a meal plan, hit a certain amount of steps per day, do cardio X amount of times per week, and train hard. That, on paper, is the easiest thing possible. That is so easy. People, like, there's no hard part of prep. The hard part of prep is the psychology. It's sticking to that for a prolonged amount of time. So this is why the psychology of anything, and I think psychology is such a not really spoken about enough topic in the fitness world, and something that I will definitely be delving into with a lot more detail, is that once you understand yourself and your own emotions, you will do a lot better in life in every aspect. Okay, so psychology is a huge one, and that is where the consistency will build up when you are in a lot more control of your own self. And being in control of yourself will come from habits, from routine, from structure. So again, when you always see testimonials of my guys and say, oh, it's completely changed my life, and I'll always remember Ollie saying, well, I saw these videos and I thought, shut up, mate, you've just got a set of abs. It's way more than just a set of abs and a few bicep veins. It genuinely gives you so much more clarity in life, and also clarity in yourself as well, of who you are as a human. Because I do believe in the modern day, a lot of people are lost. They don't know what they want or where they want to go to in life. They just kind of run around in this continuous treadmill, trying to find solutions or trying to find themselves. But once you understand yourself and your psychology and your own psyche, honestly, and this is getting a bit deep and wishy-washy now, but you will have a better life in general, a better quality of life as well. So just to summarize this video, you don't need to be motivated to make progress. You just need to be disciplined. You just need to be consistent even when it's hard. And like I say, discipline leads to motivation every single time. If you have any questions on this video, please drop a comment below. If you are new to this channel, again, as always, I do appreciate the subscribe, or hitting the subscribe button, I should say. And again, this is one of the educational videos if you are new to the channel. The other video that will come this week will be in more vlog style. So we do a different 2 videos per week, one a bit more educational and in-depth, the other one a bit more casual, vloggy, and yeah, just getting a nice balance of the both. But thank you for watching this far. If you have any questions, as always, drop me a message, leave a comment. See you in the next one, guys.